Yeah. Couple things. One of the reasons we have Randy White today, Paul Shimura, one of our good buddies over at Hot Springs Vacation Rentals. He's one of our members the last few years. He mentioned a good buddy of his, Chris Turnage, who is a CAC graduate, then went to OBU, Henderson State for his master's, and then went to ULR Law School. He owns Comprehensive Sports Management, and they represent athletes in Arkansas, Texas, and Tennessee, and he was connected to the group representing Randy. So let's give Chris a round of applause. Chris, stand up, raise your hand. I love when teamwork happens, and we got Randy on short notice, and we're excited about it. You know, Randy, I grew up being a Dallas Cowboy fan, rather. Remember the old flex defense, and just a big fan of Tom Landry, and it's really a treat to have you here. Now, we had Mark May speak to us our first meeting of the year. Yeah, he said that was nice. Do you remember Mark May's comments? It seemed to be that he was not a big fan of yours at the time. Never tried to win a popularity contest. I didn't Mark, I can't remember, Tommy Roger, did he say it on the show that he finally ended up shaking hands with Randy somewhere? It seemed like they sort of, but he just was not a big Randy White fan at all.
In an airport somewhere.
In an airport somewhere. So,
Super Bowl in New Orleans.
Super Bowl in New Orleans, okay. He remembers where they met. But glad to have Randy here. You weren't sure, he wasn't sure you were going to fight him or shake him. You look like you can still fight pretty well, Randy, to be honest with you. That to him he would. There you go, Mark. Touche. Glad we're rolling on this, Popeye. Now, Jim Rasco is going to give the formal introduction, but I'd ask Randy what he's doing now. He does a pregame show for the Cowboys on Channel 11. Is that a CBS affiliate, ABC affiliate? CBS affiliate in Dallas. And then he also owns, he said, oh yeah, I own a restaurant too. He's got the Randy White Hall of Fame barbecue restaurant. Is that right? In Frisco, Texas. So if you happen to be in Frisco, make sure and
stop in and see it.
Stop by and see it.
Too many pictures of me, but the food is delicious.
Too many pictures of Randy, but the food is delicious. Well, we're thrilled to have you. What Randy's going to do is he's going to get up and talk a little bit about his amazing career. I want you to listen to the stats that Jim gives. I knew you were a great player, Randy. I had no idea the college career you had. Unbelievable. And obviously we have one of this is no joke, we've had some great players and coaches, but you're looking at one of the most decorated defensive linemen in the history of college and NFL. So we're really thrilled to have you here, Randy. He could tell this is a fun group. He's going to have a fun time. He's going to talk a little bit about his career. He also is going to open it up to Q&A, so make sure and have your Cowboy and Redskins questions as well. But Jim Rasco, come up and give a formal introduction to our guest.
Okay, today's guest speaker played his high school football in Delaware. In one version of his high school career, I read that he was a defensive end and linebacker at Thomas McCain High in Wilmington. Graduating in 1971, he was a star in the state's first annual Blue-Gold All-Star High School football game played at the University of Delaware Stadium. In an article published in the Sporting News while he was in college, the reference to his high school career stated that he was just a big back who made third-team All-State in Delaware. He was recruited by the University of Maryland, and playing fullback as a freshman, he carried the ball only 5 times, but he did pick up 57 yards and a touchdown, but Maryland won only 2 games. Maryland brought in Jerry Claiborne as the new head coach after the season, and just before Coach Claiborne's first spring practice, our guest was described in the following way. He weighed 212 pounds, he plodded along at 4'9" for the 40, and he barely could squeeze 220 pounds in weights. Before I talk about his next 3 years at Maryland, I want to jump ahead to these numbers for his senior season. With 3 years of Coach Claiborne's weight training, our speaker went from 212 to 250. He lowered his 40-yard time to 4.6, and he could bench press 450 pounds. In the fall of 1972, as a sophomore, he became a starter at defensive end. As a junior, he was All-ACC. The Associated Press named him first-team All-America, and Maryland made it to a bowl game for the first time in 18 years. In 1974, as a senior, depending on Maryland's formation, he split time as a defensive tackle and as a defensive end and had what I would call a pretty good year. He repeated as All-ACC, He repeated as AP All-American. In fact, he was a unanimous All-American. He was the outstanding player in the Liberty Bowl. Sports writers voted him the outstanding player in the ACC. The UPI selected him as National Lineman of the Year. He received the Lombardi Award as the best lineman or linebacker in the nation. The Football Writers Association voted for him to receive the Outland Trophy as the outstanding interior lineman in the country. And he was a starter in the College All-Star game played in the summer of 1975. This is the program from that game. I repeat, he had a pretty good year at Maryland. For the NFL draft following the 1974 season, the Dallas Cowboys traded quarterback Craig Morton to the New York Giants for what turned out to be the second overall pick in the draft. The Falcons, who needed a quarterback, had the first choice, and they chose California's All-American QB Steve Bartkowski. Then the Cowboys chose our guest. The Cowboys started him as a linebacker, and that's why he was assigned jersey number 54. After playing mainly on special teams during his first 2 seasons, the Cowboys moved him to right tackle on the defensive line for the 1977 season. That year would prove to be his breakout year. He was named to his first All-Pro team, chosen to play in his first Pro Bowl, and on his 25th birthday, he was named co-MVP. Whoa! That's a good catch, one hand. Super Bowl 12. In 1978, he was named NFC Defensive Player of the Year. He was named All-Pro 9 consecutive years, and he was chosen to play in 9 consecutive Pro Bowl All-Star games. He retired after the 1988 season, having played 209 games in the NFL, all with the Cowboys. He missed only 1 game in 14 years. He played in 3 Super Bowls, 6 NFC championship games, accumulated 1,104 tackles, including 111 sacks. With that career, it's no surprise he was named to the NFL's All-Decade team for the 1980s. In recent years, he's been named to the Atlantic Coast Conference 50th Anniversary All-Star Team and ABC Sports All-Time College All-America Team. In 1995, he was named the University of Maryland's Athletic Hall of Fame. But it seems to me the University of Maryland was just 1 year behind everyone else, because in 1994, now listen closely to what happened in that year, the college football writers selected an All-American team covering the 25-year period from 1969 to 1994. Our speaker was selected to that team as a defensive tackle. That same year, 1994, he was named to the Delaware Sports Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame, the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor, and the Professional Football Hall of Fame. Okay, you've heard enough from me. Let's hear from number 94 from the University of Maryland and number 54 from the Dallas Cowboys, Hall of Famer Randy White.
I tell you what, he did his homework on that stuff, man. But I tell you, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Y'all are suffering a little bit. Y'all Cowboy fans? Oh, yeah. Well, you had a disappointing Saturday, and we all had a disappointing Sunday yesterday. Our Cowboys, I tell you what, that first game, they went up there and they beat the Giants, and, you know, I thought, and still do, think they have an opportunity moving forward, but yesterday they kind of stubbed their toe a little bit, and maybe that in the long run will be a good thing for them, wake them up. But I tell you, you know, you can't turn the ball over, you can't fumble the ball, you can't mess up in special teams. You got to catch passes, or you're not going to win football games. But all in all, I think the Dallas Cowboys have turned the corner. I like Jason Garrett. I think he's a heck of a football coach, and I think that team is kind of buying into his philosophy of doing the little things right and working hard and showing up every Sunday and doing the best you can do. Those are the kind of things that I was weaned on playing football. And I've been around some great coaches in Jerry Claiborne and Tom Landry. So they were 2 pretty good ones, and they stress do the little things right. So if you do the little things right, you'll do the big things right. If you don't do the little things right, you're not going to do the big things right. So don't get too depressed about those Cowboys. They play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Sunday in Texas in the new stadium, and I think you'll see a different football team show up. Well, I'm gonna let y'all ask me some questions here in a minute, but you want to hear some of my football stories? You want me to tell you some of mine? Well, I understand Mark May was here. You want me to start off with that?
Start there.
They're recording this, so I guess I better behave. But
You're fine.
I can tell you actually where that confrontation with Mark, just to clear it, I have no animosity towards him whatsoever anymore, but I think he does towards me. He introduced me on, they had the 100th greatest football players of all time, and why they picked Mark May to do the talk on me, I'll never know. Because he did. He did the talk, and at the end he said, I really respect him as a football player, but there's some things about him that I'll never forget. So I knew what he was talking about. But he started it. He started it. I don't know what his rookie year was, but we're playing Washington in Washington. And Mark May, he's playing against Harvey Martin. He's playing offensive tackle when he first came in the league. And he and Harvey got into an argument. Right? So I got in the middle of it, and I was trying to separate them. Well, Mark, he tries to spit on me. Right? Well, unfortunately for him, he didn't have much spit. And all he did was spray me. Well, I had a lot in there. And I clunked him right on the nose. And that's where all that started. But he played the other guard, and somehow every game he and I would get into some kind of a argument. And that story told you about Grimm saying, hey, quit making Randy mad. You don't have to block him. I've had Jacoby, Grimm, they've all told me that story. So that one was true. But yeah, they had a great offensive line, and Mark was a heck of a competitor, but he and I just, we didn't see eye to eye on that football field. Kept it interesting. Y'all remember Too Tall Jones? Well, Ed, I'm always a big outdoorsman. I like to hunt and I like to fish, and Ed comes to me one day. On our days off, I'd always be doing one or the other, and Ed, I didn't know Ed liked to hunt. And he said, Randy, he says, I like to hunt. He says, can you take me deer hunting with you next time you go? I said, sure, Ed. So I called this friend of mine up down in the other side of San Antonio and set up a trip so we could go deer hunting on a really good place. And got Ed, we loaded up on our day off, drove down there, get to the ranch, pull in. I go up to the house, Ed's in the truck, getting his stuff ready. And my buddy says, he says, hey, Randy, he says, I'll have lunch for you. He says, you bring Ed in here. I'm a big fan of his, I think he's a great football player. Really excited to see Ed. And so I said, sure. So I'm getting ready to turn around and leave, and he looks at me, he says, Randy, can you do me a favor before you go hunting? I said, what's that? He said, did you see that old mule in the pasture where you turned in the gate? And I said, yeah. He said, well, he's old and he's suffering, and, I can't bring myself to put him down. Can you put him down? I said, yeah, I'll do it for you, right? So, get warmed up, right? So, I'm going back to the truck, and I figure, you know what, I'm going to play a joke on Ed. So I get this mad look on my face, and I tell Ed, I said, Ed, we can't hunt. I said, I didn't tell this guy you were coming. And he said, he don't want you hunting on his place. He don't like you. He wish the Cowboys never draft you. And he says, we can't hunt here today. So I get in the truck. Boom, I'm speeding down the road, and I look over at Ed. I see that mule. I look at Ed. I said, I'm going to fix this guy. I slam on the brakes, take my rifle, bam, I shoot that mule right between the eyes. I hear this bam, 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 and I see Big Ed come around the corner of the truck going, hurry up, get out of here, Randy, I got 3 of his cows. That's not a true story, okay? I'll tell you true. When everybody wants to know who the toughest guy I ever played against, right? You gotta know who's the toughest one. Well, I can tell you what, they were all tough. They were all tough. That Washington Redskin group, that Russ Grimm and Jacoby, I had 600 pounds laying on me, you know, half of the night, and then I had to tackle a 240-pound John Riggins, you know. That was a challenge. Them guys were tough back then, but the toughest guy I ever played against, I mean, the hardest run blocker that I ever played against was a guy named Bob Young. Y'all remember Bob Young used to play for the St. Louis Cardinals when Deerdorf and Dobler and that group was there? Well, Bob, he and his brother, he was 320 pounds before these 300-pound guys got popular, right? I'm weighing 260, 255 pounds playing defensive tackle because Coach Landry moved me from middle linebacker into the defensive line. And, you know, my normal weight was about 265. So anyway, I'm playing against this guy, Bob Young. And, you know, and Dobler got all the publicity and Deerdorf, they got all the publicity. But Bob Young, he and his brother Doug held a 2-man world deadlift record. He was from Brownwood, Texas. I know this guy's history. He was. So I get down in my stance. Well, you know, we played that flex defense. Well, my job when I'm 2 feet off the ball is to step here and control this gap and stop this guy on the line of scrimmage. Well, Bob Young, he had a head the size of a pumpkin. I'm telling you. He had the biggest head I ever saw in my life. And he'd get down his stance, and when he put his head back, it would turn purple. He was about 6'1". He'd turn purple and he'd be down there in his stance, and I go, gee, the only thing I got, man, I got to hit him as hard as I can with my forearm right under his chin. So they snapped the ball, I'd whack him hard as I'd aim for his chin right with my forearm. I'd hit him right under his little head right here, and he'd go, then he'd go, and I'd go, You know, in our flex defense, you know, we're supposed to stop them, you know, under 3 yards. But they had a 240-pound running back named Jim Otis, where they're gaining 3 and 4 and 5 yards on first down. I don't know where Harvey was. Harvey wasn't squeezing down or anything, because I was on my own over there. So we get into meetings, and Coach Landry, you know, we used to have to watch the whole film all together, you know, as a team. And I always could tell if I had a good game or a bad game, because if he said Randy, I think things are all right. But when he said White, I'm going, oh, damn, not again. So, and he would run that back in front of the whole team. White, you got to stop him on the line of scrimmage. White, you got to stop him on the line of scrimmage. I want to say, hey, Tom, you stop him on the line of scrimmage. I can't. My only salvation, well, I could beat him on every pass play. I'd give him a couple of them, and he'd trip and fall, and I'd run back in there and get hard. But Bob Young, he was tough. He was the toughest guy that I played against as far as a run blocker. Running back, you know, I played against a lot of great running backs, too. I mean, you name them. You know, we had Tony Dorsett on our team, and I think Tony was one of the greatest, you know, if he wasn't the best. But my favorite one, even he was the best, but he was my favorite one because he and I came out of college together. And the first time I met him was out in Palo Alto, California. We were playing in an East-West Shrine game. And the first day we go into the meeting, you know, I'm from Maryland. I've been to Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania in my life, and wherever we traveled playing football. I've never been anywhere else. And We go in and this guy walks in the meeting and he writes on the blackboard, "Sweetness is Walter Payton." I went, "Who's this guy, man?" I said, "I'm gonna knock his head off when we get out there and practice." So then he comes out for practice, and he got these black shoes with red shoelaces, and he got these little bells in the tip of the shoes, so when he walks, it jingles. Now I'm really gonna get this guy, right? We get out to practice. First thing he does, I watch him, he walks, this is a true story, he walks 50 yards on his hands. That's pretty good. You ever seen anybody do that? I mean, he walked 50 yards on his hands. So that kind of got my attention a little bit. And then I saw him run around. I tried to knock his head off. I couldn't catch him the whole practice. And I said, well, maybe this guy is Sweetness, and he can wear them bells in his shoes. But I got to be good friends with Walter, met him there and stayed in touch with him. And then he went to, when he was playing with the Bears, we're playing him one time, and Walter was the kind of guy, he could run, he could pass, he could throw the ball. So I hit him one time. And I wasn't a dirty player, but I had a hold of his leg. And he was running pretty good that day, so I cranked it a little bit when I had him on the ground. Well, usually Walter would jump up and try to help you up off. He'd tackle him, and he'd jump up and he'd put his hand down there for you. Well, this time he kicked me. He kicked me, and he said, "I didn't think you're that kind of player, Randy." I told him, I said, "Walter," I said, "if I was trying to hurt you, you'd still be laying on that ground." Scared him to death, right? So about 2 plays later, the play's on the other side of the field, and I'm just kind of jogging across the field, and I see this blur out of the corner of my eye. And I don't know if you've ever been hit with a helmet right there on the side of your thigh with a guy running full speed, but he nailed me in that thigh. And for the next 2 weeks, every time I took a step, I thought about Walter Payton. But he was a competitor. He was a great guy, but he was a heck of a competitor. And, Manster. Y'all remember they nicknamed Manster? They called me Manster. Yeah. Well, Charlie Waters actually was the one that Dave Edwards called me. He was a linebacker on Dave Edwards. And then Charlie Waters, he's the one that kind of pumped that thing up to the media. But we're playing Green Bay. We're playing the Green Bay Packers. And they got this guard named Greg Couch, or Greg Cook. He's an attorney down in Houston. And this guy's just like me. I start getting an argument with him, but he's playing against Dutton over there. He's playing on the other side of the field, right? And there was an article in the Game Day magazine that day because I incorporated my martial arts stuff into football. And anyway, they had a big article in the book that day. Well, I'm playing against a guy, getting an argument with, and the guy looks at me, he goes, "What are you gonna do, Kung Fu me, Mr. Kung Fu Man?" I thought that was pretty funny, but I couldn't laugh, so I had to give him the mean look, right? So the next year we play Minnesota. Well, this guy gets traded. He's playing against Dutton again. So I get in an argument with him again. He started with me. Now, I don't normally start the arguments, trust me. But he started with me. And here we go again, and he looks at me, he says, "You're not a manster, you're a manhole." I looked at him, I said, "Manhole?" He says, "Yeah, half man, half asshole." That's a true story. So anyway, I did, about 2 months ago, this guy does a radio show down in Houston, and he called me to do a radio show anyways, and we talked about that story, and he really was picking at me just to try to distract me during the game, but what a funny guy that guy is in person. He's a great guy. Okay, the Dallas Cowboys, our football team. I'll tell you a little bit about our team when I played and what I think made us successful, and then I'm going to let you all ask me some questions. Dallas Cowboys, Tom Landry. Man, we had one of the greatest coaches to ever coach the game of football. He was not only a great football coach, he was a great man, he was a great leader, and he was a great example for all of us. You know, he always used to say, God should be first in your life, your family should be second, and then whatever else falls in place. I always thought he had them wrong, but, you know, when you get older and start figuring things out a little bit, you know, he really had it, you know, he had it down right. And things our teams had, you know, we had empathy. We cared about each other. That's one thing all the football teams in all the years I played, you know, we got guys that go different directions, you know. Thomas Henderson and I lockered next to each other. You know, we didn't always see eye to eye on things, but we cared about each other. When we came together to play football, I mean, we all came together as a team and as one to go out and accomplish a mission that we set out to do. And, you know, Roger Staubach, I'll give you a couple examples. Roger Staubach, you know, who was, you know, he got to go out there and quarterback the game. We're rookies. We had 12 rookies my rookie year. Roger Staubach would come around and shake our hands before the game and say, hey, we really need you guys today. We're just playing special teams, but he would shake our hand. Now, you got Roger Staubach coming around shaking your hand when you're a rookie telling you he needs you to play good today? What do you think, man? I'd have run through a brick wall. But, you know, we cared about each other. And I think that was an important quality that those teams all had that helped us be as successful as we were. The next one is drive. You got to have drive. You got to want to be the best you can be. And what is drive? Drive is motivation. What is motivation? Motivation is self-motivation. I mean, you can have the best equipment, the best jersey, the best coach, the best everything, but ultimately you're the one who's got to go out there and do it. Nobody can do it for you. And you got to have that drive to put in the time, you know, and that's one of the things Jason Garrett talks about that reminds me similar to Coach Landry. You know, you got to put time in. Success doesn't come, nobody gives it to you. It just doesn't happen. You have to earn it. You got to spend that time in the meetings. You got to spend your time studying, doing the little things that the other guy doesn't want to do, that you do. That way, when that fourth quarter comes around, you feel like you deserve to win. So, drive, being willing to pay the price and put the time in and sacrifice some other areas of your life to be good at what you want to do. And the last thing is strength. And when I talk about strength, it's not, you know, how much do you bench press, how much you can lift. It's strength. When things get tough, what do? You know, and this was Coach Landry's thing. If things get tough, when you're doing good, when you're good, you know, just like your Razorback team, just like that Cowboy team right now after last week, all them people that were patting them on the back, telling them how great they are going to be kicking them in the butt and talking bad about them and saying all these things. So what do you do in that situation? It's easy when it's going your way. But when things get tough, what do? Well, you look at yourself and you say, hey, each person on your team, look at yourself and say, hey, have I done everything I can possibly do to be the best I can be to help my team win? If you do that, there's something else you could be doing. There's something else you can do. When you get every guy on that team thinking that way and you believe in the leadership you have, you know what, you're going to be successful. If you care about people, you have the drive to be the best you can be, and when things get tough, you look at yourself and don't point the finger somewhere else. Look at yourself and do what you can do to be the best you can be. And when you get a group doing that, I tell you what, you're going to be successful. Sooner or later, it's going to go your way. So anyway, that's what our teams had. That's why we had the great years that we did, I believe. And that makes sense to you? Good. Now,
I'll do the first question.
you're doing the question?
I know, you go ahead.
Oh,
I got first question for
I
you.
thought you want to answer.
No. First question. Up at Arkansas, seems to be an issue maybe with some of the line play, offensive and defensive line. What, in your opinion, having played a great college career and a great NFL career, what is the right DNA What do you look for in a great offensive or defensive lineman that maybe is different than a running back or a linebacker? So maybe talk about that, and then maybe some of the great defensive linemen besides Harvey Martin, maybe that you played with in the league, and the ones that are there now that you have a lot of respect for.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know how you pick I mean, you got to be 300 pounds if you're going to be a lineman now. But, if linemen are developed, you're developed. I mean, that just has to be something that you have done from Little League football, to high school. And then when you move on to college, at each level, you have to have talent. I mean, that's the key. You got to have talent. Now, if you're a football coach in a college, you're trying to develop a program, I think recruiting talent is more important than being a great coach. Because if you have talent, if my guys are better than your guys, I can make some mistakes coaching, but I'm probably going to win. But, it's just like everything else. I mean, you got to work to be good. I don't care. I mean, I don't know the Arkansas situation, but, you have to work to be good. If you have the ability, then you have to start getting the right coaching and doing the things you have to do to get better. I mean, that's, there's no magic solution to fix a problem like that overnight. But, and the guys I see watch today, the guys I like, for the Cowboys, I tell you, I really like that Sean Lee.
Yeah.
I tell you what, he has come in there and been a breath of fresh air to me. I mean, he's a linebacker, but the way he plays, with the attitude he plays with, now that kid that hit him in the mouth yesterday, I'd like to grab him and wring his neck. I hope they fine him $1 million for that cheap shot he put on him. I mean, that's you got rules in the game, and you're not expecting some guy to be able to peel back and come clock you like he clocked Sean Lee. And then celebrate afterwards. I mean, that wasn't right. But he's a heck of a player. When I look at Baltimore, the Samoan guy, Monka, or whatever his name is, that number 71, I tell you what, he's a beast. I mean, that guy takes 2 guys to work on him. So he's pretty good. Now, offensive lineman, the best offensive lineman I ever saw in the history of watching football, I played against John Hanna and Mike Webster and guys that were great football players. But the best one I ever saw played for the Dallas Cowboys, and his name was Larry Allen. I have never seen an offensive guard or a lineman dominate his position the way Larry Allen did. Now, he was a player. You want to make a model of a guard, take Larry Allen and plug him in, because he was something special. Yes, sir.
Yes. Do you think today's NFL owners do enough to take care of former players who built the league as far as pensions, health benefits, inviting you back to the games and all that? Do they do enough? If not, what else should they be doing?
Well, I don't think they do enough. Well, I think that's has been ongoing. I think the owners want the guys from the pre-88 to, as Mike Ditka put it, what is it? Die, or something. They want us to die and go away. But, it would be nice to see if they did provide some kind of health insurance for the retired players that need knee replacements and shoulder replacements and neck, whatever. And there's really nothing there. They have that concussion lawsuit that's
Are you part of that?
That's ongoing. Yes, I did join that. I did join that with the group from Dallas. And so we'll just have to see how that works out. But no, to answer your question, no, I think they should do more. I really do. That's an area I think that they're missing out by not taking care of the, and I'm not sure it's totally the owner's fault, partially, but I think it's our Players Association and our leadership that we have there has really not done a good job of taking care of the players like they should have. Yes, sir.
Jimmy Rasco said that you missed one game in 14 years. Which one was it and why did you miss it?
Which game?
Well, I missed a game we played on Sunday, and a guy that I played against in Philadelphia, a guy named Wade Key. I beat him on a pass rush. He was a guard, and he dove at the back of my foot, and I broke a little bone on my first metatarsal in my foot, on my big toe. And I did that on a Sunday. And we turned around, the next game was on Thursday, was a Thanksgiving Day game. And, you know, I shot the thing up, I did everything I could, I taped it up, I went out there, and I actually did start the game. I started the game, I played about 3 plays and then came out because I couldn't move. And, you know, then I had a shoe made that I put a metal plate in it so my foot couldn't. I looked like Clubman for the rest of the year. But I played the rest of the year with it. But that's why I missed that game, is because I broke that bone in my foot. And the rest of the year I would go, you know, I'd sit around all week for the next, I think we had 16 games. I think it was 8 games left in the season, and 8 or 9. And I would just sit around all week. You know, I couldn't really do anything, lift a few weights, and stunk like DMSO. They used to soak my foot in DMSO. Y'all ever been around DMSO? Yeah, when I got around people, they would curl your nose. I was soaking my foot in that stuff. And but I got that metal plate in there, and they'd shoot it up before the game. Then I'd go out and play, come in, cut the tape off, shoot it up again at halftime, and then go out and play, and then hobble around for a week. But that's why I missed it. Yes, sir.
That was one of my questions. The other one is, you looking for work? What do you think about Fayetteville, Arkansas?
Looking for work?
Oh, looking for work? Oh.
Next coach.
You know, actually, I did have at one point in my life, I had aspirations of being a coach, and actually talked to Coach Landry about it, and you know, and then things changed with the Cowboys, and I talked to Jimmy, and Jimmy, you know, he had his own people, his own staff coming in, so, you know, I went and did Miller Beer commercials. What the heck? Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about the NFC Championship game and the Black Clark catch.
The catch? What do you want me to say about it? What are you, a 49er fan? Oh, that was a disappointing loss. You know, I mean, that was a disappointing loss. My feelings on that day, they had that field was wet, and they put all that cat litter on it. We had those long cleats. And I remember I had both hamstrings were locking up on me on that drive down there, and they kept pitching the ball. The heck's the running back's name? Anyway, Roger Craig. And Roger Craig was, you know, going outside. We were in that prevent defense. It prevented us from winning. Like it does most of the time. But, yeah, they got down there, and, you know, I mean, Joe was throwing the ball away. You know, I've seen Joe and, you know, talk to him about it, and he'll never admit it, but there's no way with Ed Jones, 6'9", jumping up, and Ed was actually on the way down, and Montana just threw that thing up in the air, and Clark was just lucky enough to be around it and catch it. But, you know, that particular game, you know, that kind of changed the momentum for us with the Dallas Cowboys, and the 49ers started their climb for their great years they had, and we started going on a lot of a decline after that. But that was a disappointing loss.
Did you hate the Steelers?
Did I hate the Steelers? I didn't like them. You know, actually, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yeah, and my dad was always a Steeler fan, and that first year when I was a rookie, we played the Steelers in the Super Bowl. And I always thought he was rooting for the Steelers. But Yeah, you know, I never hated the Steelers. I respect them. You know, and if, you know, when you retire, you get to meet guys just like we're talking, and you know, they're great guys. You know, Mel Blount, Joe Green. You know, Lambert, he's a little bit of a screwball. I mean, you know, but I mean, they're good guys, man. And you know, some of the guys at the time that you disliked the most, the ones you really didn't like, end up being the ones you enjoy the most. I did a show out in Vegas for 5 years. I did a gambling show. Call 888-642-5400. I'll give you the game of the week absolutely free. If you're not calling, you're losing money. And John Riggins and I did it together. Wow. And so the first night out there, you know, knowing I got to meet Riggins, you know, I know I've stepped on this guy, I've spit on him, I pushed my hand in his face when I'm getting up. You know, I'm not sure how he's going to be receiving me, right? So, you know, we get out there, and it was John and I and Dan Hampton, and we were on Sunset Boulevard, and we were going from place to place, and
Wow.
we're sitting down there.
Wow. Dan Hampton and Riggins and you.
Yeah, and Riggins, he had a few iced teas, and he looks at me and he goes, and he said, I didn't think I was going to like you, but you're all right. I said, you're not bad either, Riggins. But anyway, you end up liking those guys and really developing some good friendships.
Last question right there.
Randy,
Yes, sir.
do you think the players of today hit harder than you did? And how would you protect your great-grandson or your grandson possibly from injuries? I mean, football is a contact sport, you know that.
Yep.
But then we're having more and more injuries, and now this thing about the head injuries. I mean, is there something in the works for better pass or something like that? Or
Who hits harder, then or now?
Well, they don't hit any harder today than we hit. No way. I mean, you know, I've heard that said before, that there's no way that they'll hit any harder than the groups that I played with. You know, linemen are linemen. You know, you're going to be in here. We hit more because we used to hit head to head every time. You know, today they play patty cakes. It's a patty cake game. You know, we played with boom. You hit with your head. And you're not going to tell me that they can hit any harder than Jack Tatum or Doug Plank or those type guys in the strong safety position. No way. The weak safety position. And yes, your other question, your part of your question, I do have a grandson, and you know, when it's time for him to make a choice about playing football, I would hope that what they're doing with that concussion lawsuit, because, you know, trust me, that's filtering down to the level of the kids. Because if you have a child, if there's something out there or some research that's ongoing or should be ongoing to let you know exactly what the risks are, if there are any risks, you know, I think that's valuable information. And I think it's important to continue with that type of you know, the reason for the lawsuit is, I think, because some of this information was known, it was just withheld from the public or the players to let them know what, you know, could possibly happen to them from playing a game. Now, me personally, would I change anything? No. You know, I'd put a helmet on and play today if I could. You know, but because I love the game of football. You can get hurt stepping off a curb. You can get hurt doing anything. But, you know, if there are some risks there that I think you should know about them. If people do know that there's a risk, you know, I think you should be made aware of it, then you make a choice.
That's good, buddy.
Oh, well, I'm done. I tell you what, I appreciate it.
Great job. Randy White, everybody. Great job, Randy. John L. Smith next week. Make sure you RSVP. John L. Smith, we hope, will be here. See you next Monday.